Hello, all my dear students. I hope you all are doing good. Welcome to Sri Jendra Rank Zone classes, and I'm Amit Ajmani. In this lecture, we will be continuing the chapter Metals and Non-Metals. Now, in the previous lecture, we discussed about the physical and the chemical properties of metals and non-metals, right? And in this lecture, we will discuss about the reactions between the metals and the non-metals as to how they two react with each other. We know that whenever metals react with the non-metals, they will always form ionic compounds which will contain ionic bonds, right? Why is it so? Because metals have the tendency to lose electrons and become positive ions, whereas the non-metals have the tendency to gain electrons and become negative ions. Because of the formation of these ions, ionic bonds will be formed, and thus the compound form will be ionic compound. But when two non-metals react with each other, then they form covalent compounds. Why? Because they contain covalent bonds as they share the electrons within each other. Two metals, however, do not react with each other because both of them are willing to give the electrons. That is why they do not react. Now we know that there are noble gases which do not react. They are present in the group 18 of the periodic table. These are the noble gases, also called the inert gases. Few examples are helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon, and radon. Now, what exactly is the reason for their inertness? We know that they are quite unreactive. They do not react with other elements to form compounds due to their electron arrangements in their atoms, which is very stable and which does not allow the outermost electrons to take part in any of the chemical reactions. Let us see the electronic configuration of these noble gases or inert gases. We know that the electronic configuration is the arrangement of the electrons in the various shells, that is the K, L, M, N, O, P shells, right? When we talk about helium, the symbol is He. The atomic number of helium is 2, and these two electrons are present in the K shell. Rest, neon, argon, krypton, xenon, radon, all these have 8 electrons in their outermost shell, that is in their valence shell. So, as per the octet rule, they have their completely filled shells, because of which they are unreactive, because of which they are inert, and because of which they do not react with anyone, right? But what about the other elements? They do not have the outermost shells completed up. So these atoms, they combine with one another. Why so? Because they want to achieve the inert gas electron arrangement. Why? Because in this arrangement they will become more stable, right? So we can say that the atoms form chemical bonds in order to achieve the stability and to acquire the inert gas electronic configuration. Now, in order to do so, these atoms have three options with them. One is they can achieve inert gas configuration either by losing one or more electrons to another atom, or by gaining one or more electrons from another atom, or by sharing one or more electrons, right? And when they lose or they gain, they form ions. What are ions? We already have studied a lot about them. Let us try to brush up about the ions. An ion is an electrically charged atom or group of atoms. When exactly is an ion formed? An ion is formed by the loss or gain of electrons by an atom. Because of this loss or gain of electrons, it contains an unequal number of electrons and protons in them. We know that these ions are of two types. One are the cations and another one are the anions. What are these? a positively charged ion is known as a cation. And when exactly it is formed? It is formed when an atom loses one or more electrons. Now, because that particular atom has lost electrons, then cations are formed. Therefore, a cation contains less electrons than a normal atom. And all the metals, whenever they are converted into ions, they lose electrons. Hence, all the ions of the metals are cations, right? Two exceptions. One is hydrogen and another is ammonium. These two also form cations even though they are non-metals, right? Now, the second type of ions are the anions. And what are anions? A negatively charged ion is known as anion. How exactly it is formed? It is formed when an atom gains one or more electrons. Again, because it is the addition of electrons to an atom due to which an anion is formed, therefore an anion will contain more electrons than a normal atom. And the gaining of electrons is the property of non-metals. Therefore, the ions of all the non-metallic elements are anions. Again, the exception are hydrogen and ammonium ions, which we have studied above. They are the non-metallic elements, but still they will form positive ions. So these are the cations and anions formed by metals and non-metals. Now let us see what type of chemical bonds are formed between elements. There are two type of bonds. One are the ionic bonds, which are also known as electrovalent bonds. What are ionic bonds? The chemical bonds which are formed by the transfer of electrons, by the losing or gaining of electrons from one atom to another. They are known as the ionic bonds or the electrovalent bonds. Why they are called ionic bond? Because it is formed when there are oppositely charged ions formed. Fine. Now, these bonds are formed between metals and non-metals. We know that metal atoms have usually 1, 2 or 3 electrons in their outermost shell, which they can donate in order to form stable positive ions. When we talk about the non-metallic elements, they have usually 5, 6 or 7 electrons in their outermost shell. So, they need electrons in order to form stable negative ions. So now what exactly happens is, whenever a metal reacts with a non-metal, transfer of electrons take place. And from where is that transfer going to take place? It will be from metal elements to the non-metallic atoms, and thus an ionic bond is formed. Now when they combine, they will form a compound, and these compounds which contain ionic bonds, they are called ionic compounds as they are made up of ions. Let us see the formation of a few ionic compounds. For example, the formation of sodium chloride. Now sodium is a metal, chlorine is a non-metal. Now this sodium has the atomic number of 11, so the electronic configuration is 281. It has got one electron in its outermost shell. Chlorine atom, the atomic number is 17, so the electronic configuration is 287 and it has got 7 electrons in its valence shell. Now sodium, if it loses this one electron, it will become inert, and chlorine requires one electron in order to become inert. So now what happens is, this valence electron of sodium, it is donated by sodium and it is taken by chlorine. After losing one electron, sodium will become sodium ion. And because it has lost this outermost one electron, now its configuration becomes 2,8. Talking about the chlorine, it has gained one electron, so now it has become a negatively charged chloride ion, and after gaining one electron, its configuration becomes 288. So now both sodium and chlorine have achieved the stability, and this compound is formed between them, which is sodium chloride, in which sodium, the metallic part, is positively charged and chlorine, the non-metallic part, is negatively charged. Right? Similarly, let us see the formation of magnesium chloride. Magnesium, Mg, is a metal having an atomic number of 12. So the atomic configuration is 282. It has got two outermost electrons which it needs to donate in order to become stable. Chlorine, we know that it has got again 17 atomic number having 7 valence electrons. Now magnesium wants to donate these 2 electrons. So what it will do is it will donate 1 electron to one chlorine, right? And the another electron is donated to another chlorine. After giving these 2 electrons, magnesium is converted into a cation and it has got 2 positive charge, Mg2 plus. And after losing the 2 outermost electrons, now its configuration will be 2,8. Talking about the chlorine, this one chlorine has gained 1 electron, so it has become stable and the configuration becomes 288. Similarly, the second electron was gained by second chlorine atom and it also becomes stable. So now one magnesium, after donating 2 electrons to each chlorine, will react to form magnesium chloride, MgCl2, which is a ionic compound because it contains positive ions, that is the magnesium ions, and negative ions, that is the chloride ions. Right? Now, exactly same is how calcium reacts with chlorine. Atomic number of calcium is 20, so electronic configuration is 2882. Just like magnesium, it has got also 2 electrons in the outermost shell, which it wants to donate, and it will donate 1 electron each to chlorine atoms. So after that, this calcium will become cation Ca2 plus, having the stable configuration, and both the chlorine atoms, they will also, after gaining 1 electron each, they will achieve the inert gas configuration and we will have the compound formed calcium chloride, again an ionic compound. Now let us see the formation of magnesium oxide and calcium oxide. Now in magnesium oxide, we know, we have just discussed that magnesium atomic number 12 has got 2 electrons in the valence shell which it needs to lose in order to become stable. Oxygen atomic number is 8, electronic configuration becomes 2,6, because of which it requires 2 more electrons in order to become stable. So what happens is these 2 electrons will be donated to oxygen. After losing these 2 electrons, magnesium will become cation Mg2 plus. After losing, it has got the stable configuration of 2,8, and this oxygen will become a negatively charged oxide ion, that is an anion with a stable configuration again of 2,8. So one magnesium has reacted with one oxygen atom, so the compound formed is MgO, which is magnesium oxide. Exactly same ways, calcium will react, donating its 2 electrons to oxygen to form CaO, calcium oxide. Right? Talking about the formation of sodium oxide. Now sodium has to donate 1 electron to become stable. When it reacts with oxygen, oxygen requires 2 electrons. So what it will do is 1 electron it will gain from one sodium, and 1 electron more that oxygen requires it will gain from another sodium. So this sodium, after losing 1 electron, becomes Na plus sodium ion. This sodium also, after losing electrons, become Na plus sodium ion, and after gaining the electrons of both these sodium, the oxygen will become oxide ion. And now 2 atoms of sodium are combining with 1 atom of oxygen to form this compound. So the formula for this compound will become Na2O. This is our sodium oxide, which is also an ionic compound. Right? So this is how exactly ionic bonds are formed between metals and non-metals. There are yet another type of bonds. They are the covalent bonds. Now, what exactly are covalent bonds? These are the bonds formed by the sharing of electrons, right? And this sharing of electrons takes place between the non-metals. These non-metals, we know they have usually 5, 6 or 7 electrons in the outermost shells, except carbon which has got 4 and hydrogen which has got only 1 electron in the outermost shell. Now, in order to become inert and to achieve the stable inert gas configuration, all the non-metals, they need electrons. And if there is no metal available, then these electrons are just put up by them with the help of their mutual sharing. So whenever a non-metal which needs electrons combines with another non-metal which again needs electrons, both of them share the electrons and thus a covalent bond is formed. Now these covalent bonds are further bifurcated into three types: single covalent bond, double covalent bond, triple covalent bond. What are these? A single covalent bond consists of one pair of shared electron, and if two electrons are shared between the non-metals, then in that case it is the double covalent bond formed between them. And if three electrons are shared between the non-metals, it will be a triple covalent bond. So the covalent bond depends upon how many electrons are shared between the non-metals. Let us try to relate them one by one, talking about the single bond first. A single covalent bond consists of one pair of shared electrons. Let us try to explain it with the help of an example. Formation of chlorine molecule. Now we just talked above that chlorine has atomic number of 17. So its electronic configuration is 287 and it requires one more electron in order to become stable. Since there is no metal in the vicinity from whom this chlorine could have gained one electron, so it has got one more chlorine atom which again requires one electron to become stable. So what these two do is they share their one electron. So this one electron is shared between them, and because of this sharing a single covalent bond is formed between them, right? So whenever two atoms of the same element combine in order to form a molecule, then always there will be a covalent bond between them. Why? Because we have just studied two non-metals, they never combine with each other. So it has to be the non-metals which are combining, and importantly, whenever non-metals are combining, it has to be a covalent bond formed between them. Let us take one more example, formation of hydrogen molecule. Now hydrogen, we know that it has got only one valence electron, and in order to become stable it requires two in its K shell, right? It combines with another hydrogen atom having once again one electron in the K shell. So both of these hydrogen atoms, they will share their one electron and they will achieve their stability, forming a single bond between them. This is how hydrogen molecule is formed. Talking about hydrogen chloride molecule, right? One hydrogen having one electron requiring one more, chlorine having 7 valence electrons requiring one more. So this hydrogen and this chlorine will share their one electron, because of which there is a single bond formed between them and the compound formed is hydrogen chloride. Now this is quite important, the formation of methane. Carbon has 4 electrons in its valence shell, right, and it requires more 4 electrons. It combines with 4 hydrogen atoms. Each hydrogen atom consists of one valence electron requiring one more. So what exactly carbon does it? It shares its one electron with the first carbon. It shares the another electron with the hydrogen. It shares the another electron with one more hydrogen, and it's one electron with one more hydrogen, so it will combine with four hydrogen atoms, forming four single covalent bonds with them. This is how methane molecule CH4 is formed. Exactly same structure is formed in carbon tetrachloride CCl4. Again, carbon has 4 electrons in its outermost shell. It requires 4 more. One chlorine has 7 electrons in the outermost shell. It requires 1 more. So, carbon shares 1 electron with 1 chlorine. Now, this chlorine, after sharing 1 electron, becomes stable, but not carbon, right? So, in order to become stable, carbon combines with 1 more chlorine, sharing 1 more electron. Similarly, one more chlorine sharing 1 more electron, and more chlorine sharing more electron. So now carbon has combined with 4 chlorine atoms sharing 1 electron with each, forming one single covalent bond with each. So the compound formed is CCl4, which is carbon tetrachloride. This is also an example of single covalent bond formation. Let us see how water molecule is formed. Oxygen, we know that it requires 2 electrons. When it combines with hydrogen, hydrogen has got only 1 electron in its outermost shell. So one hydrogen can only share 1 electron. So oxygen shares its 1 electron with 1 hydrogen, and it shares 1 more electron with 1 more hydrogen to form 2 single bonds with these 2 hydrogen, and thus water molecule H2O is formed. Fine. So these are a few examples in which we have seen how single covalent bond is formed. Another example we have got here is of ammonia, NH3. Now this ammonia contains nitrogen. One nitrogen has got 5 valence electrons. It requires 3 more. When it combines with hydrogen atoms, hydrogen can only share 1 electron. So it requires 3 hydrogen atoms sharing 1 electron each. So this nitrogen shares 1 electron with this hydrogen, another electron with this hydrogen, and another electron with this hydrogen. Due to which now it has got 3 single bond forms with these 3 hydrogens, and thus one molecule of ammonia, that is NH3, is formed. Right? So these are all the single bonds in which one pair of shared electron was present. Right? Now we'll be discussing about double covalent bonds. Now double covalent bonds, they consist of two pairs of shared electrons. Example, in the case of oxygen molecule, O2 molecule. This one oxygen atom contains requires 2 electrons. It has got 4 valence electrons. This another oxygen atom also has 6 valence electrons and requires 2 more electrons. So what these two oxygen atoms do is they will share 2 electrons each, because of which there is a double bond formed between them. So oxygen molecule contains a double bond. When we talk about the formation of carbon dioxide, how it is formed, we know that one carbon atom contains 4 valence electrons. It requires 4 more electrons in order to achieve its inert gas configuration. When it combines with oxygen, oxygen will share only 2 electrons in order to become stable. So carbon combines with 2 oxygen atoms. This carbon will share 2 electrons each with this oxygen and 2 electrons with the other oxygen, forming 2 double bonds, one with this oxygen and one with this. So carbon dioxide molecule is formed by 2 double covalent bonds between carbon and oxygen. Next, take an example of ethene molecule. Carbon again has 2 carbon again has got 4 electrons in its outermost shell. Right? Now what exactly is happening is, in ethene molecule there are 2 carbon atoms. Now these 2 carbon atoms initially they share 2 electrons each with each other. So now this particular carbon, one carbon atom out of these has got 6 electrons, and the other carbon has also got 6 electrons. Still they require 2 electrons more. So they will be combining with 2 hydrogen each, sharing one electron. Why? Because hydrogen has got only one valence electron, it cannot share more than one. So now this carbon sharing 2 electrons will form a double bond with this carbon, and these both sharing one electron each with hydrogen, they will form single bonds with hydrogen. So this is how an ethene molecule is formed. The formula is C2H4, right? So these are a few examples of the formation of double bonds between the compounds. Now let us talk about triple bonds. Triple bond will consist of 3 pairs of shared electrons. Let us see a few examples. For example, the formation of a nitrogen molecule N2. One nitrogen molecule has 5 valence electrons. So it requires 3 more electrons in order to become stable. This second nitrogen atom also contains 3. It also contains 5 valence electrons and requiring 3 electrons to become stable. So what these two nitrogen atoms do is they will share 3 electrons each between them, because of which now both of them will be able to achieve the inert gas stability, thus forming a triple bond between them. Because 3 electrons are shared, so a triple covalent bond will be formed between them. Exactly same is how ethyne molecule is formed. In ethyne we have got 2 carbon atoms which react with 2 hydrogen atoms. With hydrogen we know that they can only share one electron only, because hydrogen has only got one electron to share, it cannot share more than that. And 3 electrons each are shared by the carbon atoms among themselves. So because there are 3 electrons shared by carbon atoms, there will be a triple bond between these two carbon atoms. And because there was one electron shared by each of these hydrogen atoms, so there will be a single covalent bond between carbon and hydrogen, and this is how ethyne C2H2 is formed. Clear? Let us see the formation of some more covalent compounds. For example, hydrogen sulfide. Now sulfur has 6 valence electrons. It requires 2 more electrons to become stable, and it reacts with hydrogen. One hydrogen atom can only share one electron. So in order to get 2 electrons, this sulfur will react with 2 hydrogen atoms sharing one electron each with these hydrogens, and thus forming the formula of hydrogen sulfide H2S compound. Right? This is how H2S, hydrogen sulfide, is formed. Next, the fluorine. The fluorine molecule, it one fluorine has got 7 valence electrons requiring one more electron to become stable. Another fluorine also has 7 electrons requiring one more. So they will be sharing one electron each within themselves, and both of them acquiring their inert gas configuration and thus forming fluoride molecule. Right? So this is how covalent compounds are formed by sharing of electrons. They are sharing one electron, single covalent bond will be formed. If they are sharing 2 electrons, double covalent bond will be formed. If they are sharing 3 electrons, triple covalent bond will be formed. We saw many examples related to the formation of all types of these bonds and compounds, covalent compounds. Clear to all? Now let us discuss about a few properties of ionic compounds. These ionic compounds, which are formed between metals and non-metals, which are also known as electrovalent compounds, which are formed due to the formation of ions, which are formed by the losing and gaining of electrons. These ionic compounds are usually crystalline solids. Why? Because their oppositely charged ions attract one another strongly, due to which they form a hard regular crystal structure. Right? This was the first property of ionic compounds. Talking about the second property, all the ionic compounds usually have high melting points and high boiling points. Now, why is it so? The reason is because of the strong force of attraction between the oppositely charged ions. And if there is so much strong force of attraction between them, obviously lot of heat energy will be required to break this force of attraction in order to melt or boil the ionic compound, and that is why they have got high melting point and high boiling points. Clear? Let us come to the third property of ionic compounds. These ionic compounds are usually soluble in water, but they are insoluble in organic solvents like ether, acetone, alcohol, benzene, kerosene, carbon disulfide, or carbon tetrachloride. These are all examples of organic solvents. So ionic compounds are usually soluble in water, and they are not soluble. They are insoluble in these organic compounds. Why? Because water has a high dielectric constant. Because of this, it weakens the attraction between the ions, but the same thing is not actually found in the organic solvents like ether, benzene, or kerosene. That is why they cannot dissolve the ionic compounds in them. Got it? Next property is all the ionic compounds are electrolytes, meaning that they are good conductors of electricity in their molten or aqueous form. Why? Because they contain charged particles called ions. Now, one important thing that we need to remember is that they will conduct electricity in their aqueous or molten form. The solid ionic compounds do not conduct electric current. Why? Because when they are in their solid state, these ions are held together in fixed positions by strong electrostatic forces, due to which they will not be able to move. But when we dissolve these ionic solids in water, or when we bring them in their molten form, then their crystal structure is broken down, and then the ions become free to move, due to which they will conduct electricity. So an aqueous solution of ionic compound or a molten ionic compound is an electrolyte. It will conduct electricity. Why? Because there are plenty of free ions in the solution which are able to conduct the electric current. So these are a few properties of the ionic compounds. Now let us try to relate the properties of covalent compounds, which are exactly opposite to that of the ionic compounds. The covalent compounds are usually liquids or gases. A few of them are solids also. And why they are mostly liquids or gases? Because of the weak force of attraction between their molecules. Right? Second property is that covalent compounds usually have low melting points and low boiling points. Again, why? The reason is same, that force of attraction between the molecules of a covalent compound, they are very weak, and it can be broken with a small amount of heat energy. But there are many exceptions that we studied in the physical properties. Diamond and graphite, they have got high melting point, high boiling point, right? Now, these covalent compounds are opposite to ionic compounds. They are usually insoluble in water. but they are readily soluble in organic solvents. And these covalent compounds are non-electrolytes. They will not conduct electricity. Why? Simply because they do not have ions. They are formed by the sharing of electrons, not by the losing or gaining of electrons. And because of the lack of ions, they will not conduct electricity. There are few exceptions. There are certain polar covalent compounds like hydrogen chloride gas. It conducts electricity, but then when it is dissolved in water as hydrogen chloride chemically reacts with water to form hydrochloric acid. Now this hydrochloric acid contains ions. So again, it is the presence of ions due to which any compound is going to conduct electricity. If the ions are not present, then the electrical conductivity won't be there. Got it? So these are a few properties of covalent compounds. Now let us try to differentiate between the ionic and the covalent compounds based on their properties. We have just seen the properties. These are the same differences as we have studied, that ionic compounds are usually crystalline solids, whereas covalent compounds are usually liquids or gases. Few of them are solids only. Reason we have already seen: the strong force of attraction between molecules in ionic compounds and a weak force of attraction between covalent compounds. Next difference is that ionic compounds have high melting and high boiling point, and they are non-volatile, whereas the covalent compounds have comparatively less melting and low boiling point, and they are volatile. Ionic compounds in their aqueous form or in their molten form, they will conduct electricity, whereas covalent compounds, they do not conduct electricity. Ionic compounds are usually soluble in water. Covalent compounds are usually insoluble in water. Covalent compounds are soluble in organic solvents, and ionic compounds are insoluble in organic solvents like alcohol, ether, benzene, carbon tetrachloride, etc. So these are a few points of differences between ionic and covalent compounds, and this is all about the formation of bonds, the types of bonds, and the reactions between metals and non-metals. Metals, they do not react with each other, like two metals do not react. When metals react with non-metal, they will form ionic compound. When two non-metals react with each other, they will form covalent compounds, right? So this is the bonding between them. Let us try to brush up once again what all we did. We saw exactly why noble gases are inert: because of their inert gas configuration, because of their 8 electrons in their outermost shells, except helium, which has got only 2, because helium has got only one K shell which cannot hold more than 2 electrons. So ultimately, the reason for inertness of the noble gases is that their valence shells are complete, right? Then we saw how the chemical bonding takes place. In order to achieve the inert gas configuration, any particular atom will either lose or it will gain electrons, or it will share electrons. Losing and gaining is done by metals and non-metals respectively, and by losing or gaining, they become ions. Two type of ions we know: cations and anions. Cations are the positively charged ions, mainly formed by the metals. Two non-metals, which one? Hydrogen and ammonium. They also form cations. How they are formed? By the losing of electrons, due to which the number of electrons become lesser as compared to the protons. Next are the anions, which is formed by non-metals because of the gaining of electrons. All the non-metals will form anions, that is the negatively charged ion, because after gaining electrons, their number of electrons become more. Again, exception are hydrogen and ammonium. So these are the cations and the anions. Then we talked about the types of chemical bonds. One was the ionic bond or the electrovalent bond. which is formed by the transfer of electrons between metals and non-metals, right? And the compounds formed are known as ionic compounds. We have seen lot many examples: formation of sodium chloride, formation of calcium chloride. Then we talked about formation of calcium chloride, magnesium oxide, calcium oxide, right? We saw the formation of sodium oxide. All these formations, please go through it, because this is how the electron dot structures are formed. Clear? Next, we talk about the covalent compounds, and we saw that there are three types of bonds, covalent bonds formed: single covalent bond, sharing of one electron each; double covalent bond, when there is a sharing of two electrons between elements; and triple covalent bond, when there is sharing of three electrons, right? Then we saw lot many examples and the electron dot structures of the formation of chlorine molecule having single bond between them. Then we saw about the hydrogen molecule. We saw the hydrogen chloride molecule. We saw the methane molecule. We saw the electronic configuration of carbon tetrachloride, water, and ammonia. All of them, they contain the single covalent bonds. Then we studied the double covalent bond, when two pairs of shared electrons are present, as in oxygen or carbon dioxide or ethene molecule. Triple covalent bond, when there are three pairs of shared electrons, and we saw the examples to be the nitrogen molecule, how it is formed, and ethyne molecule, how it is formed, right? After that, we studied a few properties of ionic compounds and a few properties of covalent compounds, based on which we differentiated between them. So these are the differences based on the properties of ionic as well as covalent compounds, right? First thing, I hope that whatever we have studied in today's class, everything is crystal clear to you. Second thing, always my words are that make sure by the next class you are through and thorough with your topic, not only reading or understanding, but the learning part also, because the bonding is just till here only. In the next class, we'll be studying about the metallurgical processes, how these metals are extracted. Fine. So it has nothing to do with all these bonds. So this topic is till here only. Make sure that you complete it, you practice it, and you see the type of bond formation and how electron dot structures are formed. Right? So we are ending up this class here only. Till the next class, take care of yourself. We'll meet you soon in the next class with the rest of the remaining topics of metals and non-metals. Stay happy and thank you so much. Have a great day. Enjoy yourself, guys.